This has taken away our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, and our brothers, but most importantly, it has taken away our safety. This is police brutality and the senseless killings that are also done by the police. This is the Millennial Moment with Real Urban News.
It's the Millennial Moment, information to the max. All us, all real, all truth, all facts. It's the Millennial Moment, focus staying on track. Put the word out, Real Urban News got your back. It's the Millennial Moment, information to the max. All us, all real, all truth, all facts. It's the Millennial Moment, focus staying on track. Put the word out, Real Urban News got your back.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Gates, and I find it very necessary to highlight the Black millennial perspective on events that have shifted and shaped our communities and culture in this year alone. So today, I'm joined by 3 of my colleagues that are working in the community in various capacities and uplifting the Black culture. So to my left, I have Alex Dorsey, who is a Black therapist, and he owns his own private practice. To my right, I have Mr. Davonte Green, who is the owner of Brownstone Real Estate Investments and is the CEO of Black and Bold. And also I have Miss Nina B. Childs, who is an actor, a producer, a writer, and a creative, and also the mother of 2 beautiful boys. So to start off the conversation, I want to talk about something that has plagued the Black community for many years. This has taken away our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, and our brothers, but most importantly, it has taken away our safety. This is police brutality and the senseless killings that are also done by the police. So, to Alex, I want to ask you, as a Black man, what is your perspective on the things that are happening now? We have cases like with the Botham Jean case, we have Ryan Twyman, Atiana Jefferson. Those things are still happening even in 2019. So as a Black man, what is just your initial reaction to those things?
My initial reaction is sort of fear mixed with a bit of courage. I mean, these things still are happening. We're being pulled over and stopped for various reasons. We're being killed for various reasons. But now, you know, with social media, we have a lot of evidence to pull up, you know, to fight our cases. And although things aren't necessarily always going our way, things are coming to a head, you know, a boiling point in which things might erupt, and, you know, hopefully the change that we actually need will finally come.
Right. Statistically, 2.5 represents the higher rate of Black men being killed. So, Nina, I want to go to you. For you having 2 Black boys, what does that represent for you, or how does it make you feel?
There's a lot of concern. My situation is a lot different from most people because my oldest son, who's 11, has autism. So, you know, you have a lot of cases in the news of Black children with autism being, you know, accosted by police, abused, because a lot of them are not verbal, they don't have the skills. So it definitely puts me on alert as a mother. I have to go above and beyond in regards to making sure that, you know, the community that I live in, they know my son, you know, and also just keeping him close. You know what I'm saying, until these things kind of work themselves out, because, you know, we have to protect our children. Yes. And, you know, it's sad that they can't walk around and catch the bus and do things that a lot of us did growing up, but we live in a different time. So for me, as a mother, if anything, it just makes me keep my kids a little bit closer. And I'm really count on the community as well.
And then, Davonte, growing up, did you have any experiences that developed your perspective on the police?
Oh, yeah, I had a few of those. I actually got arrested. I got arrested for my 9th grade year going to my 10th grade year for stealing the car that I didn't steal. You know, right up the street, Gardena High School. Left school early one day. Me and my friends were ditching, pretty much. Gardena High School is right up the street from Prairie Middle School. And my friends who I was with, they went to Prairie Middle School. So we went down there, and it was a security guard from the school ran up to us like, hey, any of y'all know how to drive? I need to run into this meeting and my car is in the red. And there's some girls out, and I'm like trying to like, oh, I know how to drive, you know? And he tossed me the keys. They know him, I don't. I get in there, don't know the difference between the brake and the gas. So when I put the car in drive, it starts to roll a little bit. And in order to stop it, I hit the gas and hit the car in front of me. I'm 9th grade, you know, not knowing what to do. So I sit there, and this white guy runs up and say, hey, he's trying to steal that car. You know, and I remember just being scared, panicking, getting out and running. I hopped on a bus that was really close by. 4 police cars came, stopped the bus, drew down on me with guns, had me get off the bus. And I was telling them like, hey, I know I ran, but I didn't try to steal the car. And they sent me off to jail. They laughed at me and took me to jail. And I remember having you know, my mom worked really hard to get me out of there. So my entire 10th grade year, I was on probation. So when people were going to first period, I had to go check on my probation officer on campus. But yeah, I think so many of my friends were getting harassed by the police or feeling defenseless when it came to speaking up for themselves against the police, that it just seemed normal. And I think as I got older, I realized that it was brutality, and I realized that it wasn't fair, but it wasn't something that really stood out to me as unfair earlier. I just thought that's how it was, you know. So.
And so what are the conversations that we're having? I know sometimes in the workplace we're dealing with non-black people. Alex, what are some of the conversations that we're having with people, or their responses to when something like the Tatiana Jefferson case does happen, something that wasn't even an altercation, it was just basically a cold-blooded murder?
Yeah, I think my side might be a little bit different. I think just working in the mental health field, right. Everybody in my office for the most part is a therapist, and they're really understanding of how things happen in the neighborhood, how, you know, any trauma that happens in our community affects other community members. Right. So they're really accepting and supportive. You know, there are 3 black clinicians in my office, and when things like that happen, if we need time to talk, if we need time off or anything like that, they're really supportive, and they let us do what we need to do so that we can get back right mentally to help our clients out.
Right, and that's good. And Nina, I know you work closely with the Compton as a whole. So I know that you have some insight and that you have done a work to try and make sure that those parameters in that city, whether it be with education or whether it be with the police department, are working smoothly to benefit the community. So what has your experience been with that?
Well, with policing as it goes in Compton, I'm so proud of Compton. I come from the school of belief where I think that we should be policing our own communities. I know black folks don't nobody want to be popo, but you know, in a sense, it's necessary because, you know, a black police officer is not going to regard a black person in an urban community the same way a white police officer would. In Compton, we just elected a deputy that's a black woman. Right. And so, you know, relations in regards to our sheriff's department are definitely, I'm looking forward to them being better and just having a better understanding, because I do come from the school of thought where we need to be policing our own communities, because when we look like us, we understand us. We can tell the difference between a real threat and somebody who's just, you know, having a bad day, or we don't see each other and automatically jump into this issue of fear, which is a large reason why a lot of us are being killed the way we are with no recompense for these murders. You know? Right. And in reading and researching this topic, I know something that did come up is the elimination of unnecessary interactions with the police. So even like what you were saying about the bus situation, or even how some of us, I know with me myself, being stopped while walking just because they were simply looking for a black female, and leaving me to go and search another black female and just being like, we're just searching all of them. I think those are the necessary interactions that they're saying. You know, even I keep bringing up the Tatiana Jefferson situation. That was just an unnecessary act of violence done towards her, when it could have just been a simple check on and then you go about your business. It's a wellness check. Right. And you were well before they came to check your residence. Right. This is what we're dealing with as black women and black people and black men in America. So clearly we can see 2019 was filled with a lot of issues concerning the police academy. However, it did not start in 2019. We're gonna switch topics and get into When They See Us, the special that was done by Ava DuVernay. This miniseries was created to highlight the story of the 5 black boys that were wrongfully accused of raping and assaulting a jogger in Central Park. So Davonte, I know that we had previous conversations about this, and initially you were not against watching it, but you just didn't know if it served you.
I was against watching it.
Okay, he was against watching it.
And the reason, and it wasn't I was against watching it because I didn't think the content was valuable. I didn't think that it was an important story to tell. I was making an intentional effort in my life, period, to like protect what I allowed in my mind and my vibe at the time, because I was on a mission, and I felt like I knew that this would anger me. I knew that it would get me feeling a certain way emotionally. So it took me a while to come around and watch it. I needed to wait till I got to a better state. Right. But yeah, I actually did come around, get to a better state, and started watching it. And I wasn't surprised, you know, to say the least. I wasn't surprised, which is a shame on its own. And one thing I really recognized through watching it was the parents' comfortability with talking to the police and where they needed to be and how informed they were, you know, in this whole process, and how much that influenced the police's ability to just kind of treat the kids how they wanted to. And as a parent myself, you know, I think about how important it is for me to be informed. And there's a lot of trauma that I still have. There's a lot of times I feel intimidated by the court systems. But when it's time to show up and talk, you know, talk that talk, I gotta know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So Alex, I know in having other conversations that there is an anxiety that exists within Black people when it does come to the police, when it comes to interactions with interrogations and all of those things. But there is no getting rid of, in my opinion, that anxiety, because we do not know what the other side is capable in some instances. You do have your good cops that are serving us in the right way, but then you do have the cops that were present with the Central Park Five. So as a therapist, how do you tell people to deal with that? Because I don't think the erasure of that anxiety is realistic.
I think one of the biggest things is just to first off acknowledge that anxiety is there. Anxiety is not a bad thing, right? It allows us to tell us when a situation is safe or not. It's really being able to discern, is this safe? Are there any red flags popping up? And what can I do to protect myself in those situations? The other part I would say after that is to learn different skills that you can do. You know, consult with a medical professional, therapist, or anything of that nature, so that you can learn these different skills and incorporate them if it's really impairing you so much, where it's difficult to go about your daily life and get things done.
And I think also what's an important thing, like we said, you are a mother. There's a list of things that I think now in today's time that we have to discuss with our children, with the Black boys, being an educator, being a therapist, you also being a father. There's a list of things that we have to discuss with our Black children. When you saw When They See Us, what did that put on the list? What did that add onto that list of things that we have to discuss with our children?
Well, one thing, safety and knowing where they are. There are a lot of brown boys and girls, Black boys and girls coming up missing every day. Right. Where are your teenagers? You know, they got these phones, they got these devices. Check in. I have a lot of friends who have, you know, my kids don't have phones right now, they're 11 and 7, but, you know, I have a lot of my friends that have teenagers that have trackers on their kids' phones. I mean, it's not really about an invasion of privacy at this point, it's about safety. Right. And as a mother, you know, and as a very involved community member, I think that we need to be doing whatever we can to ensure that our kids are being safe. Yes. Whether that means putting devices on their phone, you know, hourly check-ins when they're out, because it's not the kind of thing where you can just be out and it's like, where are your children? You need to know, you know?
And I would add to that my daughter has an iPhone. It's like, you could do everything with the parental controls on there. So I could shut her phone off at a certain time. I could track it 100% of the time. She has to ask for certain apps to be approved. Certain YouTube content is like not available. So they stepped the game up on the parental controls.
Right. As we dive into our history, what do you think are some tips that we should have? Because our history is full of burdens and we do get that anxiety. We can become depressed by it. Yeah. What are some tips just as a therapist to make sure that we stay level-headed as we learn about our history? I
would say that's shameless plug, go see a therapist. You know, mental health has become a big thing in our community. Right. There's a number of therapists out there, therapists that look like us, so why not go see them? The other thing is, I would say disconnect. You know, find your private space where you can re-up on your energy and, you know, become level-headed, and then find your protective group, you know, the group that you can always go to when you can get, when you need any support with whatever you're dealing with in life.
Right. That's good. And I think an important thing is having Black spaces. The importance of that is so that when we are in spaces, like when we were saying we're having the conversations, you said you're fortunate enough to be around people who are aware and who are aware of emotions, and that will let you get that break. Because sometimes we work in places and things happen and we aren't around people who understand us as Black people and understand that sometimes we might need to take a break on certain things. And I think as we transition, something that was really important, big, that happened this year was Tyler Perry Studios. He created a space, an environment where Black people are now being employed on every single level. Will Smith's most recent post, it was him, Eddie Murphy, Tracy Morgan, Martin Lawrence, and they were sitting there all filming their own, you know, TV shows or movies, but they were able to come just as boys and say hello to each other while they were working. I think that's so necessary for our men to be able to see other like-minded men that are on the same level as them working at the same time. Nina, you are an entertainer, you are an actress. What did Tyler Perry creating this studio, introducing this studio to us represent for the craft that you were doing?
Well, you know what? I used to act. I was a child actor, but for the last 5 years, I've been on the other side of the camera.
Right.
So just as a writer and producer in this space, it was huge. Tyler changed the game.
Right.
You know, we now have a space where, whereas in the past we would have to go to a Paramount or, you know, I do a lot of work with Raleigh Studios, Warner Brothers, and, you know, kind of beg to be at that table. Tyler's like, well, you know what? I'm going to go and build my own table. And so now it's like, well, we can go shoot with Tyler. You know what I'm saying? Which is phenomenal. And that picture was very monumental. Wesley Snipes, Martin Lawrence, Eddie, Will, and all those guys coming together because they're all shooting on that lot right now. Yeah. Bad Boys 3 is shooting, Coming to America 2 is shooting, and it's a big moment for the culture. Right. Even with the sound stages being named after legendary actors and people in the field that are black, that look like us. It's huge.
It's very huge, and I think even when you talk about building the table, the different people that are coming to his studio now. So they're doing the presidential debate is going to happen there. And there's a whole bunch of different other things that are happening on that soil. And then also at the BET Awards, he mentioned that it was an old Confederate Army base. What he said was it was a place where the Confederate soldiers went to plan how to keep slaves in order. And now it's being ran by basically the descendant of slaves.
It's deep.
And how important is that?
It's deep.
Yes.
Came full circle. It came
Right.
full circle. And what Tyler has done, not just for the film industry with the opening of his studios, but also for the theater genre, because that's where I got my start as a playwright. He's done amazing things. So yeah, love that brother.
Right. And Davonte, I know we all have our individual stories that are intricate and stuff, but knowing his story, him coming from being homeless and other, you know, just as a black man and him fighting against different things, what did that represent for you? Just being a black man, I know, on your journey to living your best life, and kind of like modeling that, even though it may not be on that grand scale, but just being able to model black men understanding who they are and walking in their purpose.
I've always been attracted to people who are motivated, you know, even like to the music I listen to, you know. Tyler Perry, just like Jay-Z, to me, like Meek Mill. I use these three people because T.I., I use these four people to say, like, I remember that they were at points in their career that they were pretty successful. And they did, if they would have stopped there, they would have had good careers. But it was something internal in them that kept them moving, and they on a whole nother wavelength. So what it does to me is it kind of gives me like motivation to say, like, yes, you have come a long way, but you may have not even touched, you know, the midpoint to where you actually can go. So it just kind of raises my belief level in myself, and it gives me more motivation to move forward and not necessarily sit in the past. You know, those successes are great. There's a lot I've been able to accomplish so far, but watching someone like Tyler Perry take an already successful career in life to another level and impact so many people just inspires me to do the same.
Right. And even looking at where he put the studio at, in one of the, you know, poorest cities in Georgia, in Atlanta. And he was saying that he wanted black children to see this huge studio, which is one of the largest in America. It was done by a black man. So the night, as we wrap up, I want to talk about the actual night, the 2 nights that he did, introducing his studio to black Hollywood, you know, black stars abroad. Did you see any of the pictures or videos?
I
from
saw
that
all
night?
the pictures.
You
I
saw
looked through Shade Room, Baller Alert, saw everything. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was great. I think representation matters.
Yes.
We've seen in numerous studies that when children see people of color, people that look like them, achieving such great things,
Yes.
it helps to boost their morale and their confidence.
Yes.
And then they go on and they're the next generation that goes even higher than the past. So
Yes.
I thought it was awesome.
He talked a lot about ownership. He talked a lot about making sure that we own our stuff, even in that BET speech. I want to also tap into something that was very hard for us as the LA community, the black community abroad, was the passing of rapper Nipsey Hussle. That was something that I think we all remember where we were when we heard that information. He was definitely a staple in our community on our soil. But Davonte, before we get into what happened after he passed, you were an avid supporter and fan of this man before even that. I remember being at an event and seeing you and your boys basically rapping his songs lyric for lyric and hearing some of the lyrics that he said and seeing how, you know, you guys have transformed your own lives. But what was he to you before his passing?
When he talked, it spoke to my soul because I saw somebody who just was resilient and overcame so many obstacles and also got to a place of respect and influence, but was being himself the entire time. In the past, I've seen people get to these places, but it felt like they need to compromise pieces of themselves. And for me, somebody who always felt strongly against that, I just respected that so much. And, you know, he said, you know, show up every day, you know, stay motivated, stay inspired, you know, show love to your people, you know. And for me, like, that resonates before he died and after he died. Those are some words I live by.
Yeah, and Nina, you being like a creative yourself, you working in the community yourself, you saw someone that was on a bigger scale, you know, doing that. What did that represent for you?
I mean, he definitely was a gatekeeper, you know what I'm saying, in the community, somebody who didn't just talk it but walked it, you know what I'm saying, was a living example of how you could come from nothing. I remember they were telling a story about how he acquired that parking lot where the Marathon clothing store was and how they went from being kids and getting ran out of that parking lot to coming back as adults and buying that whole area. And he's just a great representation of the American dream and how if you work hard, you can have it.
Yeah, and Alex, just talk about, once he did pass, what did you see just in the surrounding areas, in the communities around us? What did you see? What was the impact?
I thought there was some collective trauma because I think we as a community thought that Nipsey was going to be the one to make it even more and help out more people. He, you know, I mean, he would have been like our little Tyler Perry in our neighborhood, right? Just more local. But unfortunately, that we never got to see the full journey that he was going to make. But the other part of it is there was a lot of love in the streets. You know, I remember sitting at work, honestly got nothing done that day. I watched that whole funeral, that whole procession. The amount of love that happened in the streets was awesome, right? And we thought so many bad things would happen in LA, and we got the exact opposite. It was fantastic.
Right. So I think that sends a message of not judging a book by its cover. Nipsey Hussle was definitely a very special person to us, but on the outside, with him being a gangbanger, with him being a rapper, so many people thought that's just what he was, and that wasn't it. He did so much for each of us without having to even see us. So we want to make sure we remember him, and may he rest in peace. I want to thank you, Nina, Davonte, and Alex for joining me as we wrap up 2019 and discuss some of the monumental moments this year for us. These are just a few of the topics that we will be discussing, but we will definitely be bringing more to you in 2020. I'm Jasmine Gates. This is Real Urban News, here with the Millennial Moment.
It's the Millennial Moment, information to the max. All us, all real, all truth, all facts. It's the Millennial Moment, focus staying on track. Put the word out, the word out. Real Urban News got your back. It's the Millennial Moment, information to the max. All us, all real, all truth, all facts. It's the Millennial Moment, focus staying on